All right, welcome back. Today, we're prying open a case file that's been cold for centuries. It's a mystery that's woven deep into the folklore of old Europe, all about a secret society that, believe it or not, was said to ride through the night sky.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're investigating what's known as the Society of Diana. And our mission really is to follow the breadcrumbs of history to figure out what was actually going on. Was this some kind of benevolent nature cult that worshipped a goddess? Or was it something much, much darker, like the authorities later claimed?
Here's how we're going to crack this case. We'll start with the first eyewitness reports of this phantom procession. Then, we'll profile the main figure of interest. After that, we'll hear some pretty shocking witness testimony, see how the whole story got twisted, and then, finally, we'll uncover the truth and see why this case still matters today. So, our investigation kicks off with our very first piece of evidence, these incredibly widespread folk tales from all across Europe that tell of a ghostly group of hunters and spirits just storming through the night sky. You know, this whole spooky phenomenon actually has a name: the Wild Hunt. It was seen as this powerful and frankly pretty frightening supernatural event that was all tied up with the changing of the seasons and the souls of the dead. Now, while guys like Odin led the hunt up north, down in the Mediterranean regions, the leader was almost always a powerful woman, Diana. And that right there, that's our first major clue.
And this is a key piece of evidence. It's the church's first official record of the society from way back in the 10th century, in a document called the Canon Episcopi. And get this, back then they didn't even condemn it as heresy. Nope. They just dismissed these stories of riding with a goddess as delusions or maybe just dreams, not something that was actually happening.
So you have to ask, who was this leader at the center of it all? I mean, to really understand the society, we first need to get a handle on the enigmatic goddess herself, Diana.
And this really shows you just how complex she was. Diana wasn't just some simple huntress. She was what they call a triple goddess, a chthonic deity, which is just a fancy way of saying she was connected to the underworld. As Luna, she ruled the night sky. As Diana, she ruled the wild earth. And as Hecate, she governed the spirits and the underworld itself. She was literally a bridge between worlds. It's this deep connection to the spirit world that made her the perfect leader for these night journeys. She was seen as a psychopomp, which is basically a guide for the souls of the dead, leading them through what they called liminal zones. You know, those eerie, in-between spaces that aren't quite wild or civilized, not quite living or dead. Okay, now our case takes a really fascinating turn. We have some incredibly compelling witness testimony from a very specific group in the Friuli region of northern Italy. And let me tell you, their account changes everything. They called themselves the Benendanti, which means the good walkers. And these people, they didn't see themselves as heretics or anything like that. No, they believed they were protectors, that they were born with this sacred duty to leave their sleeping bodies and go fight a spiritual battle for their community's very survival.
So this is so important to understand. In their minds, what they were doing was completely good. They were fighting these spiritual battles to protect their crops and keep their villages safe. This wasn't a demonic pact. It was a sacred duty, and it really echoes that protective, agricultural side of Diana's original hunt.
And this is where the case gets messy, because a new, very powerful force enters the picture, and it begins to systematically twist the evidence using fear, coercion, and a terrifying new story. You can literally watch the narrative get twisted on this timeline. As the Great Witch Hunt starts to intensify across Europe, fueled by all this social anxiety, inquisitors start to reframe this ancient tradition. What was once seen as just a weird delusion, and later as some harmless folk magic, was now prosecuted as full-blown demonic heresy. And right here you can see the two competing stories side by side. Through things like judicial torture and leading questions, a peaceful folk belief about a goddess protecting the harvest was twisted into its demonic opposite, the witch's Sabbath, a pact with the devil himself.
But centuries later, historians started going back through the case files. They learned to look past the official story, to read between the lines of these coerced confessions, to find the truth that was buried deep, deep inside the records.
The big breakthrough really came from a historian named Carlo Ginzburg. He's the one who connected the dots between all these scattered accounts, from the Benendanti in Italy to similar beliefs in Germany and France, and he revealed this hidden pan-European pattern of belief.
And this was the verdict. The absolute core of this entire belief system, the Society of Diana, it wasn't about devil worship. Not at all. It was the last remnant of a pre-Christian tradition, a complex, agrarian fertility rite, all about making sure the land was bountiful and the community was healthy.
So, with the case pretty much closed, what's the final legacy of the Society of Diana? And what does this ancient story, and the way it was twisted, mean for us now?
While the Case of Diana Society gives us this incredibly rare peek into the spiritual lives of everyday people in the Middle Ages, it shows this fascinating tension between the official church and these rural folk traditions. Today, Diana has been reclaimed as a symbol of strength and independence, proving that for so many people, this myth was their lived reality.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of chilling question. It really reminds us that history isn't just about what happened, it's about who gets to tell the story and what gets lost or buried in their telling.